Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we have the gameplay and review of Cusco in Disney Mirrorverse, so let's get straight into it. Now if you are new, please like and subscribe for more videos, and also follow my Twitter down in the description down below to stay updated with all new videos coming out soon. So I'm part of the KCP, so basically I get to test out these guardians every single month, and after a certain amount of time they get taken away from my account, so I just get to test them out and make videos and give feedback. This is why I got Cusco. Now let's go over his abilities, starting with his core abilities. Now Cusco is immune to root, so he cannot be rooted. Now this is really good in Disney Mirrorverse, so going against certain fights in dungeons, to game modes, to fighting certain guardians, he's just not going to be rooted, which is very important. Now Cusco grants a 25% focus charge to other allies in the groove aura around him. Now when you go to fight, you can see on screen now the circle, this is the groove aura. Now when you go inside of this groove aura, you're going to gain a 25% focus charge. Now if you actually leave the aura, you're just going to lose it instantly, so you want to stay inside of this aura. It's very important to keep in mind, it's basically where everything happens with Cusco, and that's just where you want to be, so you want to stay inside that aura. Now moving on to a special ability, Cusco activates a groove field for 5 seconds. So basically whilst you're in the groove fields, Cusco and any allies heal 2% health per second for 1 second, so this can go up to 5 seconds, so basically 10% health. So you can see on screen now, we're just regenerating so much health over a 5-second period. Now if you actually leave the groove field, you're only going to gain 6% health, 2% health for 3 seconds. So you want to stay inside, but at the same time, if you do leave, you're going to get less regeneration, and at the same time you're going to lose that focus buff. Now I say this, but it is also important that you could actually leave the aura field, and you do want to leave this field at certain points to gain the 22% defense buff. Now the defense buff is very important, we're just going to go into that later. Now when the groove field activates, enemies within the field are inflicted with a bind debuff for 5 seconds. Now what is a bind debuff? Basically what it is a debuff that prevents all your enemies from using basic attacks over a 5-second period. So you can see on screen now, all of the enemies are in the aura, and we use our special ability, and boom, instantly they have the bind debuff. Now they can't hit you for 5 seconds, and during this period, you know, when you use this, you're just going to regenerate so much health, so you don't actually get hit back. So you're actually gaining that health and you're not going to lose it. This is a really good debuff to have. Now moving on to the signature ability, for each second that Cusco'S is holding a heavy attack, all allies in the groove aura have a 25% chance to be cleansed of 1 attribute debuff. So what is an attribute debuff? Basically it decreases a target's attributes, so health, attack, defense or focus debuffs. One of those get cleansed, and at the same time they have a 25% chance to gain a 10% focus buff that lasts until the end of the encounter. So this can stack up 5 times, so you can cleanse 5 debuffs, and at the same time you can get 50% focus buff. And obviously the higher you get up this signature ability, the higher it's going to go up. So let's move over to the talents. Now starting with the first advanced one, critical hits inflict a -8% focus debuff on the target that lasts until the end of the combat. So you can see on screen now, every time we hit with critical hits, the enemy gets a -8% focus debuff. Now this is really good, this can stack up to 5 times, and it lasts until the end of the combat. So yeah, moving on to the next advanced one, Cusco's special ability heals an additional 0.89% HP per second. So the higher you get this talent, the more the regeneration increases. So yeah, this is a very good talent to level up. Now the next one, whenever an enemy is inflicted with a bind, they have a 42% chance to be inflicted with a burn, dealing 10% damage per second for 5 seconds. So this means that Cusco is really good paired with guardians such as Hades or Magnificent. They're a really good combo, so using them at the same time, you know, burn is very important. And you want all your enemies to be within your aura when you use your special ability, because to get the bind you have to use your special ability. Now moving on to the elite talent, allies leaving the groove aura gain a 22% defense buff that lasts for 10 seconds. Now I did mention this earlier, so basically during times of the fight you just want to leave the aura. Obviously you're going to lose that focus buff, but you're going to gain that defense buff for 10 seconds and just instantly go back in. So you got a defense buff and then you got a focus buff. So when Cusco activates his special ability, all enemies in the groove aura have a 79% chance to be rooted for 2 seconds. And you can see that on screen now. basically they're just going to get rooted and they're just going to stay in place. So at the same time, they have the bind activated on them, so they can't use their basic attacks and they can't move. Now going over his traits, he's a medium guardian, goofball, royalty, shapeshifting and short fuse. So a couple of good traits there. So overall, Cusco seems like a really solid guardian to have in your team. He has access to bind, access to focus debuffs, regeneration, root, and he's also immune to root. So yeah, we're just going to get into a little bit of gameplay now to see how he's like in game. So moving on to the gameplay, we're going to talk about Cusco and his abilities and how to play him and who's best defeating him. So we're just going to talk about his abilities first. So Cusco's core ability grants his allies a focus buff. So once they're in the aura, they gain that focus buff. Because of his talents, when you leave the aura, he grants you a 22% defense buff. Cusco's special ability allows him to bind his enemies and heal his allies within the aura as well. With the signature ability, it grants him the ability to cleanse debuffs from his allies. His talent loadout allows him access to some focus buff, debuffs, and his elite talent grants access to burn. So Cusco's playstyle, basically what you want to do is keep him really close to your enemies as well as your other allies because of the aura. You know, you have to be inside the field to regenerate your health. So basically what you want to do is just keep him close, control him at certain points in the fight to make sure he's with you. He's quite vulnerable in some situations. He loses a bit too much health, so you need to keep an eye on his HP and make sure that he's okay in the fight. Maybe bringing someone like Violet works really well, as you can see in the gameplay. You know, you need someone who will provide that extra layer of protection, and obviously the force field is a good layer of protection that will just make him a little bit more secure because he is in the front line. So who's best paired with Cusco? So anybody that delivers focus buffs. So Scrooge really works well with Cusco. Merida and Hades also really work well. Obviously Hades, you have the burn, so it just makes Cusco even more deadly. Judy also works well because of her root. So yeah, there's a couple there that work really well with Cusco. So what enemies does Cusco counter? Cusco loves getting in close with tanks and melee enemies when he's ready to hit his special, being able to shut them down, rooting them, putting the bind on them. He works really well with those types of guardians. So who is best to defeat Cusco? When facing Cusco, a player needs to consider keeping their distance and laying damage over time on Cusco whenever possible. So relying on critical hits will not help, as Cusco is built to shut them down. So melee or ranged guardians able to inflict wounds, burn or shock will be amazing against Cusco. So someone like Gaston works really well with the wounds, and there's just many other guardians out there. So Buzz as well works really well because of the shock, and it just applies and just does so much damage. So yeah, there's a few guardians out there that can actually work really well. Overall, I'd say ranged guardians work really well. Just anyone that provides any types of damage over time works really well against Cusco. So what's my overall thoughts on this guardian? I think he's a really good guardian to have on your team. I think there are a couple of issues in terms of him being very vulnerable at times in the fight. He relies heavily on being around enemies and also your own guardian, so he's just going to always be in the middle of the fight and it will just be everywhere. His regeneration is really good, his access to roots, his bind debuff, all of it together, it just makes a really solid guardian. If I have to rate him out of 10, I would give him a solid 7.5 out of 10. I think he is a really good guardian to have in the game. I love his animations, and yeah, overall, a very good job from Gabam. So that is it for today's video. If you did like it, please leave a like and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.